So based on popular demand after my class tier list for gold farming in TBC Classic, I've chosen to do a tier list on professions as well. Keep in mind I haven't made separate videos on every profession so far, and I've mostly covered tailoring and leatherworking when it comes to profession specific gold making videos, but I have done extensive research on pretty much every single profession. I will also consider a couple of factors here because there's many different professions to talk about, so when I'm ranking these professions I think about their total gold making potential, competition for selling items, whether or not they're able to produce steady and reliable gold, and how reliable the profession is for gold making. The goal of this tier list is to show you which professions are good for gold making, so you at least have an idea of which professions to pick, as well as give you a little information about each profession as well. So with that being said, let's start. First off, I've chosen to put tailoring into the S tier for this list. Tailoring is an incredibly lucrative profession in the Burning Crusade, and it actually hits multiple of my criteria for how I'm ranking these professions. It has steady gold income from crafting different types of cloth on cooldown, such as spell cloth, primal moon cloth, and shadow weave cloth. On top of that, you also have multiple recipes that are lucrative, and several patterns and recipes can be acquired from dungeons with a low drop chance, which has insane profitability if you're lucky enough to find them. And you also have patterns that you can obtain from reputation, so you don't have to rely only on RNG, and you can actually grind out some recipes as well. And you also have even more steady gold income from spell threads, aka leg enchantments. Next up, let's spice some things up right from the start and talk about Jewelcrafting. I've actually chosen to put this into the B tier for gold making, and there's a couple of reasons for that. I think some of you would want to see this one either higher or lower, but personally I think Jewelcrafting will be a really popular profession in TBC, because first of all it's a brand new profession in TBC, and also jewel crafters can craft JC specific gems, which gives a slight improvement for DPS in raids. That being said, everyone wants new gems for their gear, so there's definitely some possibilities for steady gold income, but I do expect the competition for sales to be absolutely massive. Jewel crafters can also make some pre-abyss items and some really decent upgrades for a lot of people, which I think is interesting enough to warrant at least a B tier spot. Leatherworking is another profession that I've chosen to put into the S tier for gold making in TBC, because this profession is absolutely insane in my opinion. First of all, you have the drums, which could be insane depending on how Blizzard decides to tune them for TBC Classic. Then there's multiple crafted epic BOEs being introduced throughout TBC, and you get access to new and better BOEs for every raid tier, and you can even craft some pre-abyss items locked behind reputation in phase 1 of TBC as well, which can be an absolute goldmine at the launch of TBC when everyone wants some gear upgrades. You also have the fact that leather workers are crafting the leg armor for tanks and melee DPS, so that's going to provide some steady gold income as well. Now before we talk about more crafting professions, let's also cover some farming professions as well. I've chosen to throw mining into C tier because while it can provide a healthy amount of gold quite steady, I expect the competition for mining veins to be absolutely insane, and it's also a heavily bottable profession, which will drive the prices down. That being said, if the competition in the open world becomes too massive, you can roll a rogue or a druid and get 2 to 3 mining veins consistently per run of mana tombs, so you can start farming mining by doing stealth runs over there without any competition at all, but once again, because of bots being able to abuse this as well, I don't expect it to produce a lot of gold in value. I've chosen to put herbalism 1 tier above mining, so the B tier, simply because that while it has pretty much all of the same attributes as mining, there is one item from herbalism that is a rare spawn, and it's pretty difficult to farm, which is the flame cap. This item, if nothing changes, will be used by pretty much everyone in the parsing culture of classic TBC, which based on how massive it was back in classic WoW, I expect to also be a huge thing in TBC. Based on this item being a rare spawn in Sangormarsh only, and pretty much everyone wanting them for parsing, it will provide a lot of value to herbalism by itself. Aside from that, you can also gather herbs in the open world and inside dungeons. Once again, there will be tons of competition, and it's also probably going to be heavily infested by bots. Back to the flame cap though, I'm going to make a full in-depth video talking about this item and where to farm it and such, and that's going to come out very soon as well, but I'm really excited about this item. I hope nothing changes, and it could be an absolute goldmine. While we are on the topic of farming professions, let's also talk about skinning, and I'm going to throw this into the D tier here actually. While I don't discredit the profitability of skinning and the amount of leather needed for leatherworking, I do believe we still don't have the final version of the drums, and I think Blizzard will keep changing it based on player feedback. I also think, based on what's been happening in Classic WoW, that skinning farms will be the most infested by bots when it comes to which farms will be most affected by bots, simply because of how easily bottable this is by a hunter that can just use his pet to tank and auto-shot and skin the mob. And unless Blizzard really works on fixing the botting issue, bots will drive the price of leather down to the ground. Let's get back to some crafting professions. I've chosen to put Alchemy into the E8 here, because first of all you can get some steady gold through Primal Might transmutes, and other transmutes as well, and you can also make a hefty amount of gold by simply crafting flasks and potions. You could easily turn this into an S tier profession with the right knowledge of flipping potions and elixirs, and buying and selling at the right time. For example, buying herbs on Fridays and Saturdays, and selling potions and flasks on raid days, usually got me a minimum of 50% profit every single week back in Classic WoW, but because it is very easily accessible, I've chosen to keep it in the A tier. Enchanting used to be very profitable on Voldemort servers, and back in TBC as well, because people needed tons of enchanting materials to skill up enchanting, because you could enchant your rings, then abandon enchanting and pick up something else. This would have been very profitable in classic TBC as well because of min-max and parsing culture, but Blizzard recently put out a blue post about this saying that enchanting your rings will have an enchanting requirement to benefit from the enchant yourself. So long story short, to enchant your rings and benefit from the enchant, you need to keep enchanting, and you can't enchant your rings, then abandon enchanting, which takes away some of the profitability of disenchanting items and selling enchanting materials. That being said, enchanting is still very valuable and has a steady demand, especially when people get new gear, and you will usually see enchanting have a high profit margin the first 2 months after a new content phase. Then the profit will start dropping until the next content phase comes out. I've chosen to put enchanting into C tier because while it can be profitable, I also think it will be very competitive, but it also deserves a somewhat decent rank because a lot of formulas are locked behind reputation. But with that being said, you also get dungeon keys from reputations, and grinding reputation will be a massive thing in TBC, and a lot of players will be grinding these reputations anyway, so having these recipes won't be insanely rare. Engineering is actually quite fascinating in TBC because while you can craft things just like in Classic WoW, you can also acquire motes from clouds. So basically you can farm different motes in Outland, and it works like a gathering profession just like herbalism and mining, especially when you're able to craft the goggles which allows you to see these clouds on the minimap as well. But with that being said, I have chosen to put engineering into the D tier for gold making, because a lot of the gear that you can craft is either engineering only, or it's soul-bound items that you can't sell, and many of the tradable crafts aren't even that good. That being said, you can craft some scopes that will give you some steady gold, and once again you can gather those motes from clouds, which gives you some steady gold as well, but will most likely be very competitive. Blacksmithing is an incredibly useful profession in TBC, and there's actually tons of new recipes being added to the game in TBC. Many of these are soul-bound, some are for blacksmiths only, but some are also bound on equip. There's tons of new bound on equip items coming for blacksmithing, but here's a couple of them just to show you guys that these are actually valuable, and it's worth grabbing. Some recipes are world drops, some are drops from specific mobs, and some are locked behind reputation, so this is a bit of a mixed bag, but I've chosen to put blacksmithing into C tier for gold making. There are 3 more professions you could put into the list as well, which is cooking and fishing, and I guess technically first aid as well, but those are professions that everyone can grab on top of their other professions, so you can pick any 2 of the professions I have on this tier list, and you can also grab cooking, fishing, and first aid, and unless you have a real reason not to grab them, I would suggest grabbing them. Fishing is pretty much free gold and gives you something to do when you're bored, as well as it gives you the access to some fishing specific daily quests. So yeah, that's pretty much it guys. If you want more information about specifically tailoring and leatherworking, I have videos on those 2 professions for gold making, which I will leave a link to in the description. If you did enjoy the video, make sure to give it a like, and subscribe to the channel for more TBC content, and let me know in the comments down below if there's any professions you would rank higher or lower. I might have been a little bit too generous on the tier list, as I didn't put anything into the E or F tier, but I really think all of the professions have at least a little bit of potential. But yeah, that's pretty much it guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again very soon.